Hi everyone, welcome to this fifth episode. Before proceeding with any of the life lessons in this final episode of the series, I would like to dedicate this particular episode to the loving memory of my grandfather, whom I lost this week. Now, I did contemplate a lot about whether I should postpone this particular series by a week or some time till I could process my entire grief, me and my family. But while we talked about him and while I thought about him, one of the memories which came up, one of the life lessons I can derive from him is how to be more disciplined, how to be dedicated towards your work, whatever work you take up. It did not necessarily be your office work. If I can learn one single important thing from his life, it is accountability and dedication. So this episode is dedicated to him. The first life lesson which I would like to talk about in this particular episode is to do with writing letters. Now, I do accept and acknowledge the fact that it might seem to be a ancient idea or ancient means of communication, in terms of both efficiency and speed. But I take the romantic appeal of the notion to be able to express freely when I write, almost as equally as I can speak. I don't have a particular example here, but I would like to quote an incident which prompted me to um, have this as one of my very core important life lessons. Um, my grandmother had passed away quite when I was an early teenager. So a lot of memories I have of her are really from my only early childhood. So I didn't know her as a person, as to how she was as a wife, as to how she was as a mother or as a aunt or any kind of other relationships. So honestly, during it's only because of the letters which she had written and she had received in those days, in the early 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, even for that matter, that I have today got a very different understanding, a very holistic understanding of how my grandmother was. So, to me, letters have played a very, very important role in understanding a person in a much better way, in a much open and a much holistic way than any form, I would believe. The second life lesson which I would like to talk about in this particular episode is to do with the fact, and I quote here, forget the noun, focus on the verb, unquote. Let me give you an example to illustrate my point here. I have stopped introducing myself whenever people ask what do I do in terms of any nouns. I always tell them that I work on these, I work with these projects, I work on these aspects, I work in the risk consulting domain, because that is what the truth is. I'm not a banker anymore. I'm not a whole-headed risk manager, because those are the stereotypical nouns. But I work with a plethora of different projects. I work with different types of consulting aspects, and to add on to that, that is not the only thing which I do. On a quite a serious note, I take up painting as a passion. I love reading. I and there is there are multitudes in a person, and since quite some time now, I have begun to explore different aspects of me in a much more sensible manner. I am a traveler. uh, see how it came out differently. When I say I am a traveler, you picture as someone as who continuously travels or who is a travel influencer. No, I am not a travel influencer, but I love traveling. So the life lesson which I want to try and give out here is, it's easy to introduce yourself in nouns. It's a very succinct answer, it's a very small answer to give. Yeah, I am a physicist, I am a banker, I am a filmmaker. No, but that is not who you are, because it is very stereotypical when you answer in that way. So and what is the alternative? How do you introduce yourself is the question. So I always tell people that I am a consultant by profession, but I do take a lot of interest in these aspects. So the one benefit I find of introducing myself in this particular way is I open up multiple topics to converse with other people. Now people the but for my first conversations with new people, uh, possibly I am not sure of it, nobody can be, but possibly because of the way I think about myself and the way I introduce myself to new people, I open up new avenues of conversation, so our conversation don't get monotonous, so people don't get confused or people don't get caught up in the fact that, oh shit, I don't know anything about banking, or I don't know about anything about consultant or risk, oh it sounds very serious. No, they can converse with me about anything else. So it has opened up new conversations for me, and it has become it and it has definitely made talking to people much more interesting, much more relaxed and fun activity for me. So I guess it's a good thing that I have started thinking about myself and introducing myself in verbs and not in nouns. The third life lesson in today's episode is, what are my views, or how do I consider life to be? What are the components of of an ideal life according to me? And when I asked myself this particular question, or this question presented itself to me, I should say, rather, through conversation with a few other people, and through my reading, through some reflection, I have come up with 4 components. So according to me, there are 4 components to an ideal life. One is the money, like the financial aspect. So in terms of your ability to do things, so it's to do with money, career, freedom. That is one component. The second component I talk about is the physical health, how you are physically, how does your physical health contribute to you being able to do things which you like, which is the first component. Then the third is the mental health, and again how your mental health is good and supporting you to do the first component. Is it well enough? Is it comfortable enough? And the fourth and important component is my relationships. It's not a mathematical formula according to me, one fixed formula as to uh, how the distribution of these 4 components should be in your life or in my life. Some say it is equal, so 25% each. I don't have a percentage, frankly. So my life lesson in this aspect is not to allocate percentages or give equal importance to everything. The first task which I have done is basically recognize that, yeah, all these 4 are components and each have their own importance, time, everything. And it is going to be a iterative process. There will be some stages of my life where money, career, freedom, the first component, will be of utmost importance. There will be some stages where my relationships will be more important, or for that matter, balancing out 2-3 things will be very critical at the same time. But the first task, the first step is to identify that there is more than one in your life. Holistic process that let me give you an example over here. um, in terms of my career options, when I was contemplating, I asked myself this question, ki as to why do I want to become a consultant. So when I asked myself, I asked about these 4 components, that if I change my career from being a risk manager in a bank to a risk consultant, how is it going to impact my life? So will I get more to do more with my life in terms of money, career, freedom? Yes. Then how is it going to impact my physical health? How is it going to impact my mental health? And last but not least, how is it going to impact my relationships? So the idea is every major decision or every significant decision that I take in my life, or I will continue to continue going forward to take in my life, I would want to evaluate them, all those decisions, in these four buckets. So my life lesson here is not to try and be perfect in trying to balance out everything continuously, but my idea here is to acknowledge that there is more than one aspect to a good ideal life, and we need to consider the potential impact of any decisions or potential impact of any choices on all the four before taking it. Hi. So the fourth life lesson in today's episode is to do with the fact to acknowledge that I am more than my day job, or I am more than my career or my designation. So it is in some ways related to an earlier life lesson which I talked about in today's episode, but but there are some distinctive points which I want to talk about here. That I know that I am more than being a risk consultant. So I'm equally a reader, a traveler, a painter, and I'm trying to be a YouTuber. So it's whatever stage of every vocation I'm taking up, I am different persons. I have multitudes within me. Every person has multitudes within themselves at different stages, at different levels of granularity, maturity, etc. But the important thing is to acknowledge that and let those multitudes come up in different aspects. I'll give you an example here. While I was pursuing my management studies, as a postgraduate diploma in management, I had decided to major in the stream of finance. But at the same time, I had a very high inclination and a very good capability as well, not just inclination, towards marketing, towards public relations, towards writing, towards editing, towards public speaking, like towards participating in different competitions. So I had signed up myself for different committees in my business school. I took up a lot of different roles. I wore very many different hats, and I have genuinely come across very new sides of me that I never before acknowledged that I had, or never before had the confidence to acknowledge ki yeah, I can do this, I can do that, I love doing this, I don't love doing that, etc. So in some ways, my management education, my B school, has helped me understand this particular life lesson in much more holistic way, that I am more than the job I take up, and I am happy to explore the different multitudes of me. Hi everyone. So the last life lesson in today's episode, as well as this entire series, is a topic which I have been struggling, and I continue to still struggle, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you continue to do, is the choice between exploring something or researching something and exploiting or using something. So to quote, it is I call it as explore versus exploit. So not to get more theoretical here, I'll give you an example. This is the common dilemma which an individual person faces when he or she is deciding to get married, or he or she is trying to date somebody, whether I should date more people so as to understand more and then settle on one person, whether I should look for more options in an arranged marriage while trying to find an ideal life partner, or explore one person more, or stopping somewhere basically. Or even for that matter, when it comes to deciding for higher education, how high is good, how high is enough, or forget high, how wide is it enough. So if a person wants to be a generalist, so how general a person can be, how wide range of knowledge a person is, how wide a range of knowledge for a person is enough to be called as a generalist, or how deep a knowledge of a person is enough to call him or her a specialist. So lot of these questions I'm pretty sure a lot of individuals struggle with, and even for that matter, a lot of corporates or research institutes, they also face this kind of dilemma while balancing their focus or their vision in terms of research oriented aspect and the money making or exploitation of the resources or the assets aspect of it, this particular option. But the life lesson here I want to talk about is to understand how holistically have you thought about it. So the idea is to have objective parameters here. Let's say for example you are trying to buy a flat or buy a house for yourself. So there is always going to be a dilemma as to how many houses do you look at before you decide to buy one. Is it like you need to at least have a look at 10 houses, 15 houses, or is one or two house enough? You know what is the right answer. No, there is no right answer, or there is no definite number which you can look at, but the idea is to understand that you have looked at all aspects of it. Like genuinely make a list of everything, your quantitative factors, your financial aspects, then your emotional factors, then your practical aspects as to whether all of the destinations which you are interested in are close by. Then let's say for that matter whether in terms of documentation is the title clear. So these are just one or two couple of examples. The idea is to understand whether you have taken a thoroughly thought about decision. Now then again, it is very much possible that you might still miss out on one or two parameters, but at least you know that your direction, your process of taking a decision was correct. So the next time you think about something, you will be much more careful. So you will learn from your previous experience. But if you don't do any of this, if you don't have objective parameters to rule on, and the decisions are based purely on your whims and fancies, then you don't have any rationale to think about कि मैंने क्या सोच के ये decision लिया था, what was I thinking. If this was your thought process, and if this is your response on getting on your particular decision 2 years down the line, 1 year down the line, then it's not a good thing. So again, the point being is have objective parameters and have timelines, have inflection points, and based on the timelines, based on inflection points, based on the information you gather on the journey to make a decision, be open to changes comes up. So the choice is going to be always difficult, whether it's for corporates or it's for individual people, in terms of explore versus exploit over here. But it is important to understand the process which you are taking or process which you are following to come up with a decision, and whether you are happy with the process which you have followed.